The following production is intended for entertainment purposes only. We are not legal professionals. We do not speak for any government agency, and the opinions expressed here are our own. Relax.
So that's and that's yeah, I mean that's just history. That's not me passing any judgment or you saying, it's bad or less
Mm-hmm.
than or even greater than. It's just history that the idea of the Trinity and even the idea of Jesus being God didn't exist until hundreds of years after the New Testament was written.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, there for a while when we were in our, I think, early episodes, we talked a lot about where we've gone spiritually. Um, and so anybody tuning in right now might not quite
Oh
understand.
shucks! I just dropped a bomb on some people maybe for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
we're still
okay.
Christians.
And here's why.
Yeah.
Here's why. Because even though Jesus may have been a story, or his personality, his character is a story that's familiar throughout all of the ages. It's still like he's still a figure that is worth following. Like
Yeah.
he still practiced love, and he practiced sacrifice, and he practiced temperance. He practiced all the virtues.
Yeah.
And I think there's value in following him. I think there's value in being his disciple. And I don't think that he has to be God for you to do that.
Right. And maybe he is God, but the real secret is he's God just as much as you are.
Just like you are, just like I am.
Yeah, he is the Son of God, and you are too.
Yeah.
And if you get into really what they were talking about, or at least like you want to talk about, that's what we used to say all the time to combat this in the Pentecostals. We would talk about the idea of the logos, of like, oh, there's the literal word of God, and then there's the ever changing word of God, which is the logos. Like how Justin can get a message from the story of Cain and Abel is because God can speak to you which really it's justifying us manipulating the Bible to put our story on it. Well, one of the things that was oh shucks, I lost all legs in that. I lost 100% where I was going. What were we just talking about?
Well, so we were talking about how Jesus doesn't have to be literally God, or maybe he is, just like you and I are, because
Oh,
God
yeah.
is.
What I was going to say is the word Elohim, the word that the Old Testament used for God. It was so the word Elohim was one of the words, the one of the oldest words that was used for God before Yahweh, if that offends you, whatever. Why before Yahweh was Elohim, and what Elohim actually means is the children of God or the lower gods. So there was El, who was the like in the Ugaritic culture, which was pre-Judaic culture, proto Israelites, or the proto Old Testament was the Ugaritic, and in the Ugaritic pantheons, El was the chief god, and his children were the Elohim. And in the Old Testament, when it says "Let us create," it was "Let the Elohim create." We are the children of God, just like Jesus,
Isn't
just
it
like
fascinating?
Justin.
Isn't it fascinating it has been for me to learn about the history of language
Yeah,
and how names that start showing up in certain periods with L in them,
yeah.
Daniel,
Michael,
Bethel, and
Gabriel.
yeah, and and they can say, well, this time period is when this character arrived on scene, and before this, there's no, like, there are no names or there's no language.
And
But
but there's these two or three other characters that have characteristics of, like, one might be a meh, and one might be a ch, and the other one might be a l. And when they come together, they are Michael. And Michael is the, oh, son of man. Like the original son of man was, they think, related to Michael, the angel. Anyway,
yeah, it's really fascinating, and for me, it hasn't been.
or was a partner with him, was in a battle with him.
For me, it hasn't been sad, or I'm not sure how I would say it. For me, it's been neat and encouraging, and like, oh wow, I can get this, and I don't have to. smash all the pieces together and pretend they fit. They actually do fit if I allow them to speak for themselves.
What you're really doing is you're taking a step back. You're taking a step out of the expert seat. You're taking a step and like, oh, I didn't have this all figured out. I don't know everything. You're letting yourself open up for the possibility that there might be something that you don't know. You might have even been wrong. That's the that is the only environment in which growth or learning is capable, is possible, without
Yeah.
meeting any resistance, is when you take yourself out of the expert seat. Yeah, that's what you did. That's what we both did during, or, there's different versions of that, but it's pretty similar during our theological deconstruction phase
Mm-hmm.
that I think we're both out of now. I'd say I'm post deconstruction.
Yeah, I'm now in the I would say reconstruction, but honestly, I just don't feel a strong desire to. I don't
There's
feel a
no
need to
need.
reconstruct.
There's
Like
no
it is.
need. You've started to accept yourself. See, now you're on the journey of self-acceptance, or at least your theological self-acceptance. That's what that looks like, is the absence of the need is acceptance. You're starting to accept just what is. And one of the things that is you don't know everything. Like, oh, and that also why
Mm,
we're still Christians is that leaves the possibility for the other stuff to still exist. Like,
sure.
just in a different view. It's now a literary creation that you can tell has been repeated throughout history.
Hmm.
Hercules, Socrates, Krishna, Buddha. Um, doesn't take anything away from Jesus. But Jesus has his own Jesus flavor on it. Like, Jesus is not Buddha. I think it's a similar story, but it's also a very different story. And you can love and get the message out of Jesus now that you're accepting it. I heard a guy named Bert Ehrman, who's a New Testament scholar,
Yeah.
talk about this with the differences between Matthew, Mark, and Luke, because Matthew, Mark, and Luke has some straight out conflicts, like from the get go. The genealogy of Jesus, which is where Matthew starts, is different than the genealogy found, like even different names and different fathers, is different than the genealogy found in Mark. And one of the things I've always heard is that was like they're skipping, Mark's skipping generations, and Matthew might be adding, filling in the actual father son, where Mark goes from like great grandfather to great grandson, and he condenses it. Okay, you're just doing mental gymnastics to make
Hmm.
something fit where it doesn't fit. Well, Bart Ehrman says instead of pointing at all these conflicts, like where Jesus went after he was born, some say Matthew says he went straight to Egypt. Mark says he went to Bethlehem or went to wherever Nazareth. It was like, well, yeah, he's just leaving out the Egypt part. Oh, that's something to leave out is the Egypt part? No, it's a conflict. It's two different stories. And instead of looking for all these conflicts and looking for these differences, what you can do is just look at Matthew as Matthew's story of Jesus and
Yeah.
get
Just
everything
perspective.
out of that. Yeah.
Yep.
And then get Mark's story of Jesus and get everything out of that. You don't have to force them because you're
Well, you
taking
do.
credit
You do if you're going to maintain that theology.
that unhealth. I would say it's unhealthy in general. It's unhealthy to pretend like something exists when it doesn't. And it's unhealthy to not accept what is.
So, have you seen that video? There's a video going around. I've seen it several times for a long time of a preacher. He shows a graphic and it has all of these like different colored lines on a sheet of this is where the prophecy was foretold. This is when it happened. And it's like about Christ. Have you seen that?
No, but
Okay.
that's the story of Matthew. That's what Matthew does.
So I I saw it just the other day, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody, and I'm whatever. I just don't believe it. And
Well,
so like in this, you remember the spirograph toy that she used to play with that you put a pin in a little thing and it would make all of
yeah,
these lines. And at the
yeah,
end,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like this really intricate design. That's what this image is that he shows. And just like the CIA document, nobody is going to cross-reference all of these
Yeah.
supposed fulfillments of prophecy, nobody is going to look at like what did it actually say,
Yeah.
and nobody's going to look at, well, when was this actually written?
The
Was this
government
written
doesn't
after
do
the fact?
The government doesn't do trauma training. Are you kidding me?
It's it's the same principles as what the CIA does or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
No, they
but
do.
but the thing is, there was a time when I needed that to be true.
Yes.
Because if these things aren't true, then my whole life is turned upside down and my faith is dead. Like I need these to be true. But now I don't, and I'm okay with it. And like I
Let
haven't
me
lost.
let's explore something in that. Do you think you or anybody that you know, and I know the answer to this, but do you think you or anybody that you know hurt maybe innocent people because of your theology that you needed to be true?
Without a doubt.
You hurt some people, or people that you know were hurt and did the hurting. And I'd even say
And I
maybe,
have been hurt.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you have. I have too. Most people, or a lot of people have. A lot of people that we know have been hurt in some way, shape, or form from either religious leaders or people hurting them in the name of their theology.
Yeah.
What's done is done. And so there does need to be some healing. I can't address the healing, but there needs to be healing, and there needs to be reconciliations from that. If you want to, maybe you don't want to acknowledge that there's pain and there's hurt, but I would encourage you to acknowledge, if you're listening to this, acknowledge that people have been hurt in the name of Christianity, in the name of your church, and you might have even done the hurting. You might have been the one to do the hurting, with good intentions. Do we what do we do then? So what's the next step after acknowledging that there's been hurting? Like realistically, if you did it, what would be your next step if you want to be a good person and you want to continue this
Well,
relationship?
you would seek reconciliation with the person that you hurt.
But what does that mean?
That would mean I come to you and I acknowledge what I did was wrong, uh, potentially
But
ask for forgiveness. But the bottom line is to acknowledge that I was wrong, that was wrong.
so is that the hard part, just acknowledging that you're wrong? Because do people have to give up their faith? Do people have to give up Christianity to admit that they did something, that they hurt someone in the name of Christianity? Like, do you have to admit that your beliefs are wrong in order to admit that you hurt someone? Because then I can understand why some people might not ever bite that bullet. If you think that your eternal soul is in danger of you admitting that your theology is wrong, and so therefore I'd rather ruin this relationship with a loved one than to damn my eternal soul. I'm not forgiving it. I'm just saying I understand it.
Yeah. I mean, think about there was,
So maybe even if you're hurt, you need to hear that. Like the person that hurt you maybe can't admit that they're wrong because
yeah.
they think that their eternal soul is going to go to hell if they do.
Or there's a thought out there that says if you can't believe every part of the Bible, if
Yeah.
there's a single part,
Infallible
yes,
word of God.
if you can prove that there's an error in this Bible, throw the whole thing out. Then it's all unreliable.
Yeah,
Which
which is
is
stupid.
which is a complete manipulation, by the way.
Yeah,
Because if anybody ever tells you, "Hey, if you question me about anything, then
we're
we're done.
done.
You can't
That's an
question, you
abusive
can't trust." That's abuse.
That's a manipulative,
That's
abusive
manipulation,
relationship.
and that's what we do. That's what we do in religion with Christianity, and that's why I think a lot of people are unable, and I'm not necessarily unwilling, unable, and I get it because I was there. I can't admit that this was added after the fact. I can't admit that this is was copied from another story. I can't admit that this author didn't actually write this. The person that we think wrote it didn't actually write it. Because if I do, then I've got to throw the whole thing out. And that's my entire life. That's
Yeah.
my existence is built on this religion.
And the reason I said these hurtful things of God hates these people, or you're a this, or you're a
Yeah.
that, uh, is because I thought, because they thought they were doing what's right, even though, I mean, that's hard to justify. That's hard to say and believe, but I
so
know it's true,
there was
or to a degree.
my church growing up practiced what we called church discipline,
Yeah.
which is when somebody does something bad, and they don't repent or they don't get right, then
CULT. This is cult behavior.
if you dude, I remember this one that just absolutely boggles my mind even to this day. There was a lady in our church who was being abused, physically abused. Her husband was beating her. He repented. She filed for divorce. She was placed under church discipline, meaning she's excommunicated, meaning if you see her at the store, don't be unkind, but you can't talk to her. She's shunned
That's
because she
unkind.
well, no, it's loving. And that's what I was trying to get at. Because
It's loving.
what the point is, the point of that is to shun them to where they want to come back into the fold and repent of their sin. That happened all the time. Like I remember as a little kid watching this, and that's my framework. Is that's the Bible says this is how you're supposed to do it. And there's even a reference that goes with it. Like today, if you were to go to if you were to look up
You have to hold brothers hold one another accountable.
well, so it's kind of a thing in fundamentalism. It's a specific type of they would call it Matthew something discipline. I can't remember the reference, but it's it's a thing. You know, fundamental Bible believing Baptist churches on their websites will say we practice Matthew whatever church discipline, and that's that's a feather in your cap, you know, or that's a whatever. But it's disgusting, and
Yeah.
and I think that's what you get when you follow that theology.
So, if you're someone that's been affected by the theology, or if you're someone that's in that theology, you have to make a decision. The first decision is, do I want to continue this relationship? So I'm saying either you've been hurt or you're the hurter. On either one of these, and you have a problem in a relationship. And I say this as being on both sides of this myself in different situations in my life. You have to ask yourself, do I want to continue this relationship with this person? Well, if the answer is no, then just proceed. You know, you don't have to change anything. If the answer is if I don't want there to be any reconciliation, then just proceed. If I do want there to be a reconciliation, there has to be give, no matter what side of this equation you're on. No matter if you're the hurter or the hurted, there has to be something in you that takes down the wall. Because if you're the hurted, it's this person hurt me. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for this person to hurt me until you take down the wall and see, to some degree, what they did, they thought they were doing for love. They actually did do it for love.
Yeah.
It's not a thought. They did do that for love.
They thought they were right.
They thought they were right. Even when evidence hit them in their face that what they did was wrong, because of what they know and because of their decades of conditioning, the only option they had was to double down.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what you do. If you're tested, if your faith is being tested, it's because you don't have enough faith. You need to double down in your faith, brother Justin. If your faith is being tested, don't listen to Joe Rogan. Don't listen to these Dad Over Dogma podcasts. You need to buckle down in the Word, brother.
Sounds to me like you're leaning on your own understanding.
On own understanding. So if you're the hurted, you have to understand the psychology. These people, I'm not saying that excuses all of them. Like obviously there's some stuff that, you know, is more complicated than that. But in general, a lot of these theological hurts, a lot of the hurts from the church came from the intention of love. If you're the hurter, you have to acknowledge that there was hurt. You have to acknowledge that something that someone got their feelings hurt, and you have to acknowledge that. Are you about to? Okay.
Nope. I got to answer something, but I'm still listening.
No, that's fine. If you're the, where was I on the hurted? If you're on the hurted, you have to acknowledge that what they didn't.
And if you're the one,
that did the hurt.
You're the one that's doing the hurt.
You have to you have to bring down that you might not be right about this thing, that it's possible for there. That's why, that's the importance of, I think, the that was one of the important things about my modern theological deconstruction. Why I call, that has nothing to do with why I still call myself a Christian, but a lot to do with my deconstruction was acknowledging that uh, I don't know everything. I took myself out of the expert seat, and that's something that's crucial to healing. If you find yourself in this in one of those seats, or on both of those seats, maybe in different versions.
I think maybe I would say it's important to know that you there's room within the theology to
Yeah.
question it and to not believe all of it. Like you don't have to say, well, if you don't believe all of it, then throw the whole thing out, because there's still value there.
Yeah.
There are still good things to find and practice and share.
Well, that goes against common sense. I mean, that goes against something that we all know. Not like, not every person you know is 100% right. You don't kill them because they're 100% good and perfect on everything. You don't end your relationship like, I saw Justin pick his nose and flick it one time. I didn't tell him I seen him do that. I'm just gonna cut off all ties with Justin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't do that in real life. So why do you do it on your religion? Or why do you do it on this book? Especially if you say that that you don't worship this idol. You say that you don't worship idols. But if I drop a Bible on the ground, does that
Yeah.
bother you in some way?
Yeah.
Do you think that this Bible actually is God? You know?
Well, yeah. And I think that's even when I was still in the mainstream, I actually called that out within fundamentalism, that
Yeah.
I think within fundamentalism there's a lot of worshiping the book more than the subject of the book.
Yes.
Like this book is elevated to a place where it's basically God.
Yeah.
And you would
The
say,
word of God
well,
is perfect.
it's the word of God. Um, Here's a question for you, because I think a lot of people generally, when they hear that somebody's deconstructed or lost their faith or left the faith, whatever, they would say, well, that must be because you just want to do what you want to do.
This
Or,
is why you got to stay for the hour, folks, because we're starting to get into the good stuff when we're nice and warmed up.
um, I know that's not the case with you. And I know that there are specific people and books and authors and things that you've recently or within the past 10 years come across that have shaped your opinion. For me, Bart Ehrman was one. Peter Ince was one. Um, who was Rob Bell, the Data Over Dogma podcast. Um, there's been a lot that this isn't a
And you're
case
not
of
saying all of these people are the know all experts. Like, you're not
no,
saying that these
no.
people know it all, but they've shed light.
They've given me some things to think about. One of the big ones was in a book called The Evolution of Adam by Peter Ince. The first time I'd ever heard that the flood story existed in a lot of different cultures,
Oh
and
yeah.
and they're very similar. There are some changes.
There's even more than one flood story, and you could say that the Old
Oh yeah,
Testament has more than one flood story.
yeah, yeah. So for you, who have been the influential, or what has been the influential voices?
Man, what's weird is a lot of like the bedrock of my deconstruction didn't come from external sources as much as it came from an internal event. Like, I had a crisis in my life where I could not reconcile some things. There's actually many versions of this, but like where it really started to hammer home is I was in Afghanistan. I was separated from my wife. I had a child with another woman, was my girlfriend. Um, she left me for a coworker of mine, like an old coworker of mine when she was in the United States. She left me for my old coworker. She doesn't listen to this, and even if she does, I don't care. It's true. It happened. She broke up with me while I was in Afghanistan. and like months after my son was born that she gave birth to, and for a coworker who she like got engaged to months later, like 2 months later. I had friends getting hurt and getting sent home. I saw people die. I saw body parts. I was depressed. Like, I was in a danger zone of depression. Like when I talked about depression, how it can be dangerous, it can be physically dangerous to you. I was in that danger zone. And I was fasting and I was praying and I was reading my Bible and I wasn't jacking off. I wasn't watching porn. I was cutting back on my smokes. I was doing everything. Like I buckled down, like, how does Sunday school Clayton beat this? Like, because my life is going to end soon if something doesn't change. Like I saw that coming. I felt that danger. Which is, anyway, I felt that danger like, oh, your life is in danger right now. You need to become the best Christian you can because the only thing that can save you right now is God. And I did the God thing. I did Sunday school and I was just getting worse. And I felt worse because I was getting worse. Like, oh, you're a piece of shit and you're a fake Christian. And so then what I found, one of my buddies, is on this deployment that I also got into podcasts. Like I discovered podcasts on this deployment when I was in Afghanistan, 2010. And I also discovered, I looked it up. I had heard of him before, but Tony Robbins
Yeah.
and Deepak Chopra. I bought a Tony Robbins. Oh shit, it's right here. I bought. It just happened to be out. Personal Power 2.
Are those cassettes?
These are
Oh, no,
CDs.
CDs.
These
Okay.
are CDs, brother. I bought a CD set that is basically, in retrospect, is cognitive behavioral therapy. He's doing his own layman's cognitive behavioral therapy. That made the situation less dangerous. And then I got a couple meditation CDs by Deepak Chopra. And one of them is the green one, and the other one is the gold one.
I love me some Deepak.
Yeah, Deepak. I got peace from Deepak. So not only are those two not Christian sources, Deepak is even a Hindu. He he has a completely other theology. The only thing that brought me out of that dangerous depression was both not Christian and even a different religion. Saved my life. Saved me. Like the reason I'm still here is because of those two things that I ordered.
Now, so when you and I met, you had that was well
That was in the
past
past.
that was well past that
Yeah.
scenario. But when we met, you were still, as
I
far
was
as I know,
Christian.
you were hard charging believer.
I even played this trick on myself that I would argue that we all do. Well, I know that we all do. But to a degree, I allowed enough time to pass to be like, I convinced myself that God, Jesus, used Anthony Robbins and
Yeah.
used that heathen Deepak Chopra to save my life. But really, the only thing that saved me was Jesus. So it was like
You
an
know what?
abusive relationship,
But
actually.
listen. Do you know what I love about that? Like that's exactly what my circle of people would say is, well, yeah, God can use anything, and
Yeah.
God used Deepak, and that's true. That's 100% true. But I think it's a different. When we say God, we're talking about something different because
Yeah.
we're talking about the God
I
in
do
you.
agree with you.
Yeah, you're right. Just like when I see the sign that says God exists. Yeah, he
He
sure
sure
does.
does. He sure
Probably
does.
not probably not the one you're talking about,
Yeah.
but he sure does. Um, and
Or even
I
now, when someone says Jesus is God, I'm like, yeah, I believe
for
he
sure,
was.
for sure.
I got
What the problem is?
the problem is yeah, where the
Um,
blaspheming comes in at.
but that's the thing is I love that. Like, yeah, 100%. God saved your life.
Yeah.
Um,
So I convinced myself I did this mental gymnastics because of like an abusive relationship. I say that now, maybe it's a little bit too critical, but it is true. It was to a degree. Because of abuse that's happened from the church, is I kept coming back to the mind. I had to, in order for my life to be right, like just like Afghanistan, in order for my life to be right, there has to be Jesus in it, and not just Jesus, but Pentecostal Jesus. And my wife doesn't like Pentecostal, so I'll go to this this non-denominational church. But I
Southern
really,
Baptist.
uh, yeah, I did do
That's what
Southern
they all
Baptist.
are. That's what
Yeah.
that's all of the non-denominational churches. They're just Southern Baptist undercover.
What's funny is one of the churches, not Grace Point. So I love Grace Point. There's a female cardinal outside my window, or that's a male. But another church there in Wichita, they're non-denominational, but they were affiliated with the Southern Baptist Church. Like they were in the Southern
Yeah.
circle,
The Alliance.
the alliance. Yeah. Um. Yeah, I had to keep coming back to Jesus in order for my life to be right, and so to the point where I pretended like Deepak didn't really save my life, or if he did, it was Jesus using Deepak.
Mhm.
That's like the foundation. But later on, so like I struggle with depression, man. I got depression, I got anxiety, I got PTSD. It's one of my daily, or it's one of my, not daily anymore, but it is like a part of my life. These things comes in waves, and another wave, man. One of the things that affects me in my depression is that used to affect me, that I think I've worked through at least to some degree, is this theological guilt and religious guilt that I felt my whole life, of like the reason things go bad is because you're a bad Christian and God's punishing you. The reason I believe that is because people told me that.
Mhm.
You know, if not outright, it was definitely in the way they talked about other people. Like, oh yeah, of course his life's falling to shit. He's a heathen. Of
Yeah.
course, he's got all these problems. He blah 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 blah. So now when problems start coming onto me, of course it is because I'm a heathen. God doesn't love
Mhm.
me. Of course my children don't talk to me because I didn't give them enough Jesus. I got to give these kids more Jesus. I got to double down on this theology. Man, that's abusive relationship. Um,
So we're about 21 minutes past your original hard out.
yeah,
Um,
I'm good
Probably,
to.
well, we've been at it for what, 2 hours now?
No way.
Yeah, yeah. We started it
Oh,
because we were going to start at 6:15, and I'll bet we started at 6:22 on the dot.
okay.
It's now 8:22.
Do you got someplace to go?
Not particularly. I need to spit out this chew real quick because
I got you.
I've gone
I have
I've
no
gone
nicotine in my house right now, and I'm getting kind of a panic attack.
Oh, well, yeah, don't let me add to that. I started
I'm not
regular
gonna
chewing
take the
again.
hint. I'm not gonna take the hint that you're obviously laying out, and I'm gonna stay on. Okay, I'm not getting rid of it.
Hang on a sec.
Is the house stirring? Is everyone awake?
Yeah, dude, my daughter already went to work. She went to work at like 6 o'clock this morning.
Not a girl.
She's
Not a girl.
Yeah,
Margaret.
I'm real proud of her. She's a good kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I've been, dude, I quit chewing like 3 years ago, and I started.
Kinda. You did.
Well, it's just slow down there. Let me explain. I quit chewing tobacco
All right, Gandhi.
about 3 years ago, and I started chewing. Not chewing. I started using these. I
You
love them.
changed your nicotine vehicle.
Yeah, but this doesn't have tobacco in it. It's
Right.
just nicotine, as the Lord intended.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it?
I think so. I mean, because basically, without the tobacco, it's just like a health food. It's just a regular old supplement, nicotine supplement. Um, Wait a second. Hold on. What are you vaping?
Huh?
There's no nicotine in you. Oh, never mind. Anyway, I had
CBD?
I started sucking on these, and I just didn't even have a desire for tobacco.
Yeah, you
Didn't
did.
need it. Didn't even need it. Well, then like a couple weeks ago, I was like, dang, I freaking need some tobacco. And I just started back up, and I'm half, man, I'm kind of disappointed. I'm actually really disappointed in myself. Because I don't want to start again.
Let me ask you
But here
something.
I am. I'm started, brother. I'm back in it.
It's gonna sound like I'm changing the subject, but I'm not.
Okay.
Theoretically, or hypothetically, if you had a friend that uh was a habitual THC user, completely theoretical,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
would there be any point that you intervene? Like, if, say this guy used a vape,
Yeah.
what would be the usage where you personally would, or would there be any usage where you would feel the need to be like, hey, you might want to think about that?
You want my real answer?
Yeah.
It would be when it starts affecting his life. Like if he's unable to go to
Okay.
work, or if he
Okay.
finds himself driving under the influence, or he's incapable of taking care of his kids, something like that.
What if he can go through life a-okay?
Go for it, brother.
Hey, yes.
Now, I know a guy. Oh, how do I want to say this? Maybe I don't. What about,
This
let's
is an
say
imaginary
theoretically?
person. Yeah, this is a
Let's
hypothetical
say
person. Is
theoretically.
that Kodiak you got?
No, dude, this is
What kind of
Copenhagen.
dip?
That's
Okay,
Copenhagen.
Kodiak is high dollar.
Which is freaking. So is this? It's like $6 a can these days.
That's not high. That's not high. I'd offend you. That's like a $10 can out here.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, I'm not gonna need a story about this other guy that I know.
Oh, come on. Tell me an imaginary story.
So if someone were to be like, yeah, I'm just gonna take a little break. I'm just gonna take a break for till Christmas Eve. But then that person was like, well, I guess I better start drinking whiskey again.
Yeah,
Like,
fuck that.
that's
No, that's dumb.
that is dumb, and that would be a dumb thing to do.
That's like going back to the source of abuse, brother. You're in a better relationship. Like, just because that old gal was trashy and, you know what I mean, sloppy and kind of fun sometimes, still she was not good for your life.
Right?
She was not good for your body. She was not good
Can
for
we
your
just
mind.
can we just specify? Can we just clarify?
I'm talking about an imaginary person.
Right. And when you're talking about the woman, we're talking about
alcohol.
Thank you. Okay.
Alcohol.
Yes.
But this theoretical new guy, this new girl in your life who you have a healthy relationship, yeah, you could overdo it, theoretically,
Maybe.
allegedly, or you could just have more fun. I mean, but she's not as bad for your mind. She's not great for your short-term memory, but she's not bad for your mind. She's not bad for your body. She's actually, lots of studies say she might even help out your body in different ways. I'm not saying to say she's a vitamin, but it's not bad for. She's good. Maybe even could be.
Yeah, could be.
Some effects that she has, or like the cologne, the perfume. Let's say she wears this perfume called CBD, that can actually reduce seizures. It enhances your neural pathways. It even strengthens your memory, your long-term memory. You can run long distances with this girlfriend because she helps your lungs relax. You might have a coughing fit or two, but after you get through that, your lungs will relax. Your knees won't hurt. You get an appetite. Let's say you're not able to eat, but this girlfriend helps you eat. This girlfriend helps you stay healthy. This girlfriend helps you go to bed on time.
I say put a ring on it.
You don't have it. You don't have any strange hangovers with this girlfriend, right? You want to go back to sloppy Teresa? Yeah, she looks hot in the miniskirt, but brother, she is not good.
And you want to know the funny thing about sloppy Teresa?
Yeah.
She just makes me sad.
Yeah.
Like, it just
you're never happy when you leave sloppy Teresa's house.
No.
Ever.
I mean, it's fun, there.
There's some fun to be had when you're at Teresa's house.
But as the night wears on, just kind of get sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe,
and you're even to the point where you don't want to show your face to your new girlfriend just out of shame. You're like, ugh. And she's not going to judge you. She's going to love you and accept you back. But you're like, ugh, yeah. I don't even deserve to see her right now.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is a blast from the past, man. On the whiskey and the freaking tobacco. I need to fast forward.
Yeah.
Come back up a couple years.
You're backsliding?
I'm backslidden.
Well, here's some other things. I wrote down some other stuff. We are about out. if you want to be. But man, I can't read.
Can I just throw this out there that
Metallica Russia videos. Oh, I watched a 1991 video of Metallica playing Harvester of Sorrow in St. Petersburg. I think they defeated communism. I think Metallica won the West.
have we talked about the CIA writing Winds of Change by the Scorpions?
No,
Sung by the Scorpions, written by the CIA. We've never talked about that.
no.
There's a podcast that I'll see if I can find it and I'll send it to you. It's like a 6-part podcast where
Metallica was not controlled opposition, controlled by the CIA.
not Metallica, but you know the song Wind of Change, right? Winds of
I've
Change.
heard this story you're talking about. I don't think I've ever listened to the song.
Oh my goodness. It's a classic song. You should listen to it.
But it's maybe mind control, right? It's maybe CIA mind control.
Yeah, with the to what was it? Germany.
This is the same logic why I don't have TikTok. The Eastern Bloc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was an offshoot of what I wanted to talk about: TikTok and UFOs. And remember, December 3rd, there was supposed to be this big UFO.
Are they
battle
saying
in
it
the
actually
sky.
happened?
No. Here's what I'm saying.
Okay.
You're hearing about all of the drones, right?
Right.
It's now mainstream. What I was talking about, bro, if people would have listened to me, if you would have listened to me, the stuff I learned from TikTok like 3 weeks ago is now mainstream, and now you're going to believe it. 3 weeks ago, you were like, oh, that's just TikTok stuff. Now it's coming to light. And I wonder if the UFO battle was just like...
I sent you a video of someone shooting at these drones. I
Right. Right, but I'm
unknowingly
saying-
poured gasoline on this fire, and I'm sorry.
But what I'm saying is a couple weeks ago, you were like, oh, where are you hearing this from? TikTok?
Right.
But maybe it's just early. The timing was early because maybe what this is all about, and maybe the government's involved. I don't know. Maybe they're Iranian drones. I don't know. But maybe that's still going to happen.
Oh, they're
It's not-
Chinese.
It's not going to be UFOs. It's going to be drones,
Yeah.
right? And it was just a few weeks earlier. Or I'm sorry, the prophecy or whatever, like the anticipated battle wasn't going to be December 3rd. Maybe it's going to be December 23rd. You know what I mean? Because it just seems like it's ramping up. Like they're covering all of New Jersey, you know, all of these drones all over the place, all over the world. People are reporting them. Somebody here in Derby, one of my friends on Facebook, has been seeing drones, you know, at night. And, you know, drones, whatever. I had a drone. You can buy a drone at Walmart. Kids are going to get drones for Christmas. But what they're talking about are not Walmart or DJI drones. They're
Right.
massive. Some people are saying they're the size of an SUV. Like it's something
And
other
they
than
fly into a mothership. Like there's actual videos. It's weird. The White House press secretary flat out denied that. There's videos of them flying into motherships. Like
now
these
I've heard of the mothership. I haven't seen that video.
well, I've seen it flying, like a big one and a little one flying up to it, and I just assumed
Okay.
that's what they were talking about.
Okay. So what the heck?
Now, yes, that could be UFOs, and TikTok could be right, or these could be. The opinion I think I have is that these are obviously Chinese drones. I say that because China did a pretty public probe on us with those weather balloons, and we did absolutely nothing about it.
Yeah.
Nothing. We did
And we're
nothing.
currently doing absolutely nothing about the
Nothing
drones.
about. So now so I think that's why it lends to these being Chinese. It smells like something China's done before, and TikTok is owned by the Chinese government.
Allegedly.
Pretty matter of factly. So I think that that just sheds a little doubt onto your theory for me personally. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that for me, the fact
are
that
you
China owns TikTok and that these are probably Chinese UFOs or drones.
And
UFOs.
and we could be talking about two different things. Like these drones may have nothing to do with UFOs. You're not suggesting that UFOs don't exist, are you? Like alien powered UFOs? Because that's pretty much a given at this point.
I'm not saying they'd. I definitely think there's aliens. I definitely think
Okay.
that there's planets with life, intelligent life. I'm not 100% convinced that they come here ever. I think there's the people that are coming from the sky, or the things that are coming from the sky, have always been talked about.
Hmm.
I think the Bhagavad Gita talked about it. I think the Bible talked about it, the Old Testament.
Egyptian inscriptions.
You know, what's funny is there's a lot of Socratic connection, or there's a lot of connection between Socrates and Pythagoras was a super mystic that talked about angels and demons, or things like other entities. Even Socrates himself considered himself possessed by a daemoni, um, which Christians would not like to hear that. um,
That's why you shouldn't listen to him.
yeah, exactly. It's so crazy. You know, Gnostics believe, on a little tangent, Gnostics that don't actually exist anymore believed in something called the demiurge, and they thought the God of the Old Testament was actually the bad guy, and that Jesus came and said he was almost like Jesus wasn't really connected to the God of the Old Testament. The only reason he said he was is so that the Jews would listen to him, but Jesus was actually from the demiurge, is what they called the God of the Old Testament, the creator, which this really all it means is the creator of this world, but there's actually a God above him, and that's who Jesus came from. Jesus was like
Okay.
an emissary of the God above him, the true God.
Okay.
And that was really their only real name of him, was True God. Or Barbelo was the female version of that. But some first century Christians, that was their thought. And they're Gnostics. They had that same belief. I got completely off the rails talking about Gnostics.
Well, we were talking about UFOs, alien powered
Oh, so
invade.
these things have always been around. I think it could be angels and demons. I don't know. I think it seems more there's more evidence to say things that come from the sky, or what old people called angels and demons. You know, will within the will, chariots of fire,
I think
or
what they're,
demigods.
I think kind of the thought now is that they're coming from the ocean,
Yeah, there's
which
there
which
there's old
makes
stuff to back that up
makes
too.
makes a lot of sense in terms of like some of the videos that you've seen, or the one thing that really lends credibility to this. And there was a time when I would have laughed at the idea of UFOs, or I would have thought it was maybe fun but stupid. I was talking to an old Vietnam fighter pilot,
Hmm.
and is well respected,
Was he
uh,
a pig farmer in his later years?
allegedly,
Allegedly.
um, colonel, former colonel. And I don't know why it came up, but he
I'm a
told
lead
me
farmer, motherfucker.
he told me, I wouldn't be so quick to discount that. And I was like, what do you mean? And he told me that as a fighter pilot, we all saw stuff all the time that you just didn't talk about.
I talked to Navy pilots all the time when I was in the Navy, and they all said the same thing. We always see them. We see them all the time. You just can't say anything.
Yeah. And that for me was a turning point. I was like, okay, so maybe I should pay more attention. And then you start you start seeing more videos come out, and there's more sightings, and people are freely talking about it now. Um,
Now there's a government website and app to report them.
yeah.
You can report them to the government when you see them. That's how far we've come.
Yeah. So they it's a no-brainer to me that they exist. So, the I think now the common
I'm
thought
not
is,
so sure what we see on these videos. I'm not convinced that I'm not convinced that there's any biological life in those. I think those are probably a drone of some sort. Maybe not a human drone,
okay.
but I would say, at least from my view, logically, there's more evidence than not that it's human made, but maybe not. But I don't think there's any biological life. There's no earthly biological life. Think about things that have blood and a brain and a heart, or things that are made out of carbon based flesh.
Yeah.
Cannot survive these G forces. like goes from 50,000 feet to surface level in less than a second, if any living thing is in that, it's going to be turned into spaghetti when it stops. Like it's going to
Well,
stop and turn into mush. The G
unless
forces.
unless it's just made of something completely foreign to us. Like if it's extraterrestrial, then we have
Yeah.
no idea what it's capable of withstanding.
Well, the craft itself, but we know what biological life can withstand. The craft itself can obviously take it, but the rules don't change for biological life just because it's in this thing.
Well, but it's not our biology.
It Yeah, but it's not biology how we understand it. So there's no reason to assume that there is something biological. Do we know that craft can be flown without a pilot, like inside of it? Yeah.
Yes.
Does that we know of, is there any biological life that could survive those G forces? Not talking
No.
about the craft,
No.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
life. So then is it logically we know that there's aircraft that can be flown without a biological pilot, and we know that biological pilots, at least here on Earth, cannot. I don't think they would change anywhere. I don't think adding Earth is a qualifier. A biological life form couldn't survive these G forces. I think it's logical to think that there's no pilot in them, that they're being controlled by something else.
Well, could you or I survive anywhere other than Earth, as far as we know?
No.
So you would have to say that whatever, if there's something piloting it, that it's so different from us that it can live in an atmosphere other than our own.
Now, let me ask you this. Is the idea of a drone operator different than the idea of a soul in a body?
Say that again.
So a soul in the body, at least how I think of a soul, comes from heaven, right? It's like not from here. I don't know. Maybe I just got way too far out there. Maybe that weave was too wide. But I think it's like a soul. My idea of a soul comes from heaven. Like this body is not me. This
Hmm.
body is not my soul. Uh, as a matter of fact, when this body is done, I'm just going to go back to where I was before. And I think I'm going to come back, but maybe not. Maybe I go back there to where I was before and just stay there. But I think if I wanted to, I could come back in as a different body and do this whole flight and the whole simulation over again. And then when that one dies, I go back and come back and do the whole thing. Then I think that's a lot like a drone pilot.
Okay.
And I think the idea of reincarnation is just another word for simulation theory. And another word for simulation theory is a video game. And I think this could be an example, almost like a hint, like an Easter egg of what the game really is. Is I think this is I think there's some life form is controlling this drone, but it's not doing it from inside of it.
Yeah,
And
I could buy that.
I think it's not very dissimilar from the way that my soul is in my body.
Interesting.
I
Uh,
think I think these things that are supernatural, I think this is in their world. Like if you think about things that are angels and demons and these things, these entities, these aliens, which I don't know if they're connected to the UFOs, but these aliens, if they are, then we know that another name for them is angels and demons, these aliens. And so there has to be a connection between your soul and angels and demons. It's all the same world. It's kind of like magic. Like science is these technological terms for what used to be called magic. I think aliens and UFOs are another scientific word for what used to be called, yeah, aliens and UFOs for what used to be called angels and demons and your soul and gods, the Elohim.
hmm,
I think it's all the same thing. Just like Republicans and Democrats or cats and dogs. We're all coming from and going toward the same thing. We're just doing it from different angles.
yeah,
Like Republicans and Democrats both want world peace or the best thing ever. We just have different ideas how to get there, or everybody has different ideas how to get there. I think science and theology both want to understand the world. They're just doing it from different angles. And I think
yes.
UFOs and aliens are an example of that.
That's a good way to describe it because I've said before That religion, I believe religion is an attempt to explain why things are the way they are.
Yeah, sure.
That's what science is,
Yeah,
right? It's the same thing.
yeah,
I've never really looked at them like that, but I would describe both of them as having the same purpose,
yeah.
to
It used to be,
understand
and
why
in
things are the way they
Socrates,
are.
they were the same. So the ancients understood it as the same. It's only in the last 1,000 years, maybe, that there's been since the Renaissance. So really, the last 500 years, that there's been a separation from the Dark Ages to the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was separating science and religion. Up until 500 years ago, it was the same. And I
Hmm.
think there's more evidence than not to say that it's the same.
Well, how strange is it that a common argument against religion is science? So
Yeah,
many people would say, "I don't believe in religion. I believe in science." Uh,
science. Yeah.
I don't believe in religion because I believe in science. So not only are they not in today's culture, not only are they not the same thing, they're opposed to each other.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. I wonder why we separated and then
I
made
don't
them.
know. I mean, there's attractive arguments that lead to conspiracy theories that say like there's a hidden agenda. Like there isn't, because around the time of these separations of like the Enlightenment period is around a lot of the same time a lot of these secret organizations started gaining a foot, or you started hearing about the Illuminati, the Masons, these these old secret organizations that people are typically afraid of, I think started coming around at this time. So it lends to the idea, maybe even an archetypal idea of like I said, what's as attractive, that there's forces that want you to be confused. There's forces that want you to think that science and religion is two different things. Like even coming from the religious side, like abandon all that worldly filth,
Mhm.
lean not on your own understanding,
Yeah, the wisdom of this world.
the wisdom of this world. Even religion wants you to think that there's a difference between religion and science. And the ancients didn't think that, and I don't think that either. I think, like I said, if you read, but if you look at it in just a different angle, I think these aliens could be angels and demons, and I think it speaks to, at least in some way, to our soul.
I remember hearing that theory when I was a kid. I never really, I never really gave it much uh,
Tucker
credence.
Carlson believes that.
Oh, yeah, I can't. I
Not saying
he,
that adds a lot of credibility to me.
his laugh is too weird, so I can't listen to. I can't stand anything he said. I can't listen to him
He
because he
sounds like
laughs so
you,
good.
if you're tickling an owl.
So do you think that? Would you think that they're coming from a like from deep, deep outer, like physically a far distance, or just a different dimension? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like
but
light
isn't
years
the
away,
result
or
isn't the experience the same either way? Like, wouldn't the result, like, yeah, wouldn't the experience, because I think that speaks to dreams, or maybe intoxicated states, like from what I've heard of like psychedelics. I haven't experienced it. But like being in the spirit, like we used to say in the Pentecostal world,
yeah.
I think the experience is the same whether you're coming from another dimension, or whether you're traveling from physical light years away.
Hmm.
I, Either way, it's this massive journey from a place, like a different galaxy. It's bigger than a galaxy. So like the sun to Pluto is our galaxy. It's the Milky Way. It's our solar system. And it even beyond that, that's what you're imagining when you're talking about from light years away.
Yeah.
Might as well be coming from a different dimension. It's the same. Um,
Practically speaking, it feels different. I
how
don't know what the
so?
different. I can't explain it.
Well, I
But
think because one's woo woo and one is measurable miles, even though you really can't comprehend a light
yeah.
year,
Okay.
because one, we know what a mile looks like, but you can't really comprehend a light year. A light year we're using a time reference to measure distance.
Yeah.
And a light year is the distance it would take for something traveling at the speed of light, which is pretty much instantaneous, but something for traveling at the speed of light for a whole year, for 365 days, is 1 light year. So we're using time to measure distance. And we're talking about these things coming from hundreds of thousands of light years away. We say we can understand that, but you can't really understand that.
Yeah.
You
It's the
can't
difference.
picture a light year.
It's the difference between religion and science. So the religion part would be a different um, a different dimension. The science
Yeah,
part would
heaven.
be hundreds of thousands of light years away.
Heaven
But
or
it's the
hell.
same. Like you can't really comprehend it either way.
You say you can, but you can't.
So is that kind of the same question of let's say you're on a psychedelic, LSD, something like that, and you perceive things around
I
you.
have done a psychedelic. I forgot Salvia divinorum.
I want to. I really want to try ayahuasca.
Yeah, me too.
But anyway, so you're on the psychedelic. You perceive things physically around you where you really are. The question would be, are they actually there, and you're perceiving them,
So like the
or
elves and the dragons?
yeah, like you're
Or
just seeing something that's always been there, or is a microscopic area of your brain getting touched by a chemical that causes you to perceive this, and it's not really there.
right.
But does it matter? Because
The
you're
experience
perceiving,
is the same.
right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the same? Are we talking about the same thing? So
We are.
whether it's a different dimension or it's 1,000 light years away, whether it's actually here or I'm just perceiving it.
Yeah. We're using different words to describe the same thing. So if I say there's this dimension called heaven where your soul comes from and where everything is beautiful, it's literally the realization of everything good. Like it is the best anything could possibly be, is this dimension called heaven. But that's so unlike here on earth to where you can't really imagine it. You kind of can. You can get glimpses of imagining, but you can't even really comprehend it. Something that's 100% good, because you have to dissolve into that. Like to really trace that down, the best, that's, I think, is what the Buddhists called nirvana, would be the same state as heaven, of something that's the best it could possibly be. Everything. Because it really, there is no I in that. There is no more me. When something is the best, you can't really comprehend it.
Mm-hmm.
I might as well be saying it's this physical place where these angels are coming from, but it's 300 light years away. And really what they're saying is it's like 300,000 light years away. But even to say 300 light years away, that means you'd have to be traveling at the speed of light, which we can't comprehend, for a year, for 365 days, 300 times. You can't really comprehend that. No matter what your degree is, no matter if you're Neil deGrasse Tyson or whatever, I don't think your mind, your human mind, really comprehends what that is. You might as well be talking about this dimension where everything is good and everything is wonderful and everything is bright. And we have these messengers that come from there. And actually, we're from there. And we're from everywhere. And if you want to get real big, we're the whole universe. But anyway, like, we're kind of saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're using different words to say the same thing. And both of them are not comprehensible, incomprehensible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we eventually get down to where Socrates said, what I really know is that I know nothing. That's really knowing yourself. Is this Jesus dude, Socrates, it was so good. I don't have any of it figured out. But it's worth it. But I think his character would say it's worth finding the holes in everything. It's healthy to evaluate everything to find the holes in it, because that's the only way you can really understand something. Like, that's why, man, that's what led to my deconstruction,
Mm-hmm.
was really examining these holes. You don't
Yeah.
really know it until you look at the holes and haven't like honestly examine those holes. That's what Republicans have to do and Democrats have to do. It's what liberals and conservatives, what Christians and everyone else, religious people and atheists.
But it's the same thing even with politics that I can't I don't it's uncomfortable examining my political party because if I think my political party is just as bad as the other one, well,
Yeah.
where does that leave me?
Yeah.
And we're
Leaves
so
you as
afraid,
like a human.
but we're so afraid of not knowing where we belong. Like if I don't believe
We're
the
afraid of
Bible,
not being
then what
right.
am I? If I'm not a Republican, then what am I? If I'm not a Democrat, then what? Like
Yeah.
you don't have to. You're none of those things. Which is it's kind of one of the I think along the Buddhist path. Not that I'm following the Buddhist path, but like recognizing that I exist.
He is, Pastor. I'm telling on him.
That ultimately that's what I've come up with is that I exist.
And
Period.
really, you don't.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, that's the real Buddhist. Like the Buddhist
That there is no
ground
I?
that there really is no I even.
Yeah. So whatever you want to call it, whatever I am, which I don't know what I am, I'm not I'm beyond a male.
You're definitely
I'm
not that
beyond
body.
I'm yes, like
You're not that body.
I'm not my body, I'm not my mind, I'm not the things I do, I'm not the things I think. Somehow whatever I
But why are
am.
you not? Why are you not? Because a person is going to say that's retarded. Of course you are.
Well,
Why are
because
you
those
not? Those things.
because those things could be taken at any moment and I'm still me.
And I would
Whatever.
say they didn't come from you either. I'd say they came from other places. Like your physical
Yeah,
body
yeah, okay.
biologically came from your mom and dad.
Yeah.
Your thoughts probably came from your mom and dad too.
And
Uh,
environment.
and environment.
Yeah, and you're part of me.
Yes.
You shaped me. I shaped
Yeah.
you. We're all shaping each other.
We're all the same, right? So, I mean, if you break it down, none of your identity, I think, came from you, or the only thing that did is something so indescribable that it's like not even from this world. When you take away your thoughts, when you take away your behaviors, when you take away your body, when you take away your mind, if there is anything left, the only word that I could use to describe it as would be the great mystery, a soul. That's the great mystery is what the Wankatonkans, Northwest American Indian tribe, the Wakantanka was the word they used to describe the great mystery is what the Shoshone people believed was God.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only word they could put on what they imagined as God was the great mystery.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You remember Pete Holmes when he talks about
yeah.
God? Yeah, we throw this blanket over the great mystery and we call it God.
Yeah. So that term great mystery is a Shoshone thing, Wakantanka. I think lots of people have a version of the great mystery.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that could be left, if there's anything left, is that thing. If you take away your identity. When you say I exist, if there is an I there, it's the
Mm-hmm.
divine.
And I think that's ultimately when I came up I didn't come up with this, but when I decided that that's all I can say is that I exist, the question that I was trying to figure out is what am I? Who am I talking about when I say I? What am I talking about when I say I?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I can't
You're
explain
talking
it.
about perfection. I mean, really, you're talking about everything good. You're talking about everything bad too. You're talking about everything. You're talking about the universe, brother. To get a little woo-woo for a second, you're talking about God. God is inside of you.
So, does that necessarily mean that the devil is also inside of you?
I
Is
don't think
part of
there's
you?
a I don't think there's a difference.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. Explain that.
Well, if there's a devil, then his counterpart you could call God would be like if the devil is all things bad, then his exact opposite would be all things good.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be something besides above that even. And that's what I think is the great mystery.
Would that be all things, period?
That'd be all things, period. That would be all. That would be I am. That'd be am.
Hmm.
That yeah.
Yeah.
That would eventually be nothing.
Now, so like, I think Buddhism teaches that, right? With
Yeah.
the yin and yang, or there,
Uh,
or no?
that's not a Buddhist idea, but I think it's been
Would that be
incorporated.
Taoism? What is
Yeah, yeah.
okay? Which Taoism is that part of Buddhism, or is it completely different?
No, the Eastern theology, I think they have a healthier relationship. They allow for things to exist together but still be separate.
Okay,
You can be a Taoist and a Buddhist, but Buddhism does not acknowledge Taoism, and Taoism does not acknowledge Buddhism, like directly.
okay. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, that's
Yin
all I
and
had on
yang.
that.
But what were you going to say about yin and yang?
Well, just that's kind of so okay. That's what I was going to ask is, are there religions that believe that good and evil
Yeah,
are
non-dualistic.
of the same source?
Yeah, so to believe that, so there's theories that ancient Judaism was non-dualistic. So God, like proto before Greek. So before Alexander the Great, most of the Old Testament was written after the Greeks invaded the Mediterranean. After Alexander the Great invaded the Mediterranean, that's when the New Testament was really written, or in the Greek version of it, the Septuagint. Right? There's theories. They talk about this on Dad Over Dogma. Bert Ehrman's talked about this, that dualism is introduced around the time that the priestly class of the Bible was being written. And that comes from, or no, not the priestly class, sorry. So when the Septuagint comes is when dualism is when a lot of these dualistic ideas are introduced. And before that, it wasn't a dualistic religion. Episodes.
Um, I'm not gonna lie. When I thought he was saying monster shucks, I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
what?
that's definitely a Clayton thing. Like I guarantee you that Clayton has introduced the word monster shucks, and I'm guessing that it's like when you're super no like instead of shucks, it's like monster shucks, like super dang it.
Ducks.
So I might start using it. Yeah, I was asking him. I was asking him if there's any words that I should know, like if there's anything, new language or new cool terms is what I was looking for.
Oh,
And so yeah, he blessed me with monster shucks, and I'm gonna put it in my vocabulary.
oh man, I forgot what it was. He said one. I've wanted to talk about this on the podcast before, but we're kind of even past it now. At the beginning of the school year, he introduced. Have you seen this? I imagine you've seen it on TikTok. It's this thing. He got it from social media called English or Spanish. Have you? It's like these man on the
Uh,
street interviews.
yeah, but I don't get it. I've seen it, but I don't get it.
So I hadn't seen this, and he came up to me, and I laughed and laughed and laughed. He came up to me in his little accent and goes, "English or Spanish?" I was like, "English." And he goes, "First one to move is gay." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "You're gay."
Okay, so let's say if you said Spanish.
He says, "The first one to move is gay." You're gay.
So whichever you
No matter
choose.
what you choose.
Okay.
Uh, when I was his age is when I first started using high five. And as soon as you went to give me a high five, I'd go, "Who's gay?" And you'd be stuck like this.
I'd never heard that
That
one.
was a father son generational. I didn't even have to teach this. It just came to him
Yeah.
natural.
Yeah. So again, he is who he is because of you.
Right. So, and he is awesome. Me and his mom, right? So he's going to be his own unique self. His own special spark is really just a different combination of me and his mom and the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I am the same thing. I'm a product of my environment in the truest sense, to the point to where there might not even be a me really in there. And if there is, it's the same thing that's got to be in everybody.
Which kind of comes down to this thought that we're all made out of the same stuff.
I hope people
And
get to, this is where the good stuff is. I hope people make it this far.
well, we may just have to let's just split it up
Yeah.
because we're pushing 3 hours now.
Okay. All right, fine.
Um, was there any? I feel like there were some things I wanted to cover, but
Oh,
I,
let me ask you this. This can be a little conversation, or we could even end it. It's no matter what. I have to be at work at 11, so I'll say my time, and it's 10:08 my time. So I'll start getting. So I got about 10 minutes.
okay,
Running posture.
okay.
I just started paying attention. Now, do you put much weight? Do you put any weight even into your posture or your form when it comes to training for running, or what do you do?
Dude, I am so disappointed in my lack of running. Um,
Yeah,
and I mean, there for a while, man, I was
cooking.
I was getting it. I was getting after it and I was making good progress. But I just really ever since we got back from Tennessee, I just haven't
You know, when
had
you don't run, you get depressed.
yeah. And then when I get depressed, I don't want to run.
Yeah,
And so it's just this vicious cycle.
yeah.
Um, so I haven't run in a long time, but
Okay.
I do um, focus or put effort into my posture. Um,
How so?
so I typically try to lean, but I don't do this while I'm running. But if you were to imagine
Shoulders
it,
over hips.
so if you were to imagine it, imagine standing straight up and then leaning slightly forward, kind of not from the waist,
Pivoting
but
at the hips.
yeah. So just kind of almost like maybe like you're skiing downhill,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not quite so extreme. Just a
Uh-huh.
little tilt forward,
Uh-huh.
um, and
But your
then
body's in a straight line.
yep, and then I really do best when I'm just looking like 8 feet in front of me, probably.
Oh, really?
Occasionally I'll look up, especially when I'm running on uh, half of my route is in the middle of traffic. So I really have to check to make sure there's no cars coming. But I prefer to kind of keep my eyes and my head facing like 8 feet in front of me, but down.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean it's to the point where I don't guess I really focus on it that much anymore. But I have.
I and I just acknowledged last night a little bit this that there's a touch of this that's unhealthy and I need to address it. But for the last couple of weeks I've been really focusing on the cadence. Ever since I ran my 10K, I've been focusing on my cadence. My goal is to have 180. I want my feet to have 180 beats per minute
Hmm.
because that's what professional runners do. They say the best optimal cadence is 180 beats per minute. I think you already see where I'm going with to a little bit with this. Uh, so I spent a couple of weeks. I have been really focusing, and I just can't get 180. I get like 174 sometimes, but I'm usually around like 166. Like 166 is my normal cadence. I I can get into the 170s, but I'm not touching 180. So like I'm watching all these videos on running gait and running form and long distance techniques, and I've got so far where I'm at right now is your gaze needs to be 20 yards in front of you. So kind of like what you were saying, but like down at an angle, 20 yards in front. Your uh neck needs to be straight but not clenched. Your mouth needs to be slightly open, jaws not clenched. You need to consciously put your shoulders down. You don't want your shoulders to ride up.
Yep.
Relax your neck and shoulders, and even consciously push your shoulders down.
Hmm.
Hands or elbows at a 90-degree angle or higher. So I don't want my hands to ever come past this. I want it to stay like right here.
No, I do the opposite of that.
You keep your hands
I,
low.
I try to keep them a little bit lower,
Okay. Well,
just
this is
just
just
because this feels like it requires um,
strength or
strength and,
energy.
and energy, whereas
Yeah.
down here, it still requires a little bit of energy because my tendency is to bring them up, but I prefer to just have them down.
I feel like, well, the video I watched said bring the hands up here, and I feel like you can like lock it in easier. I feel like I can lock it in right here
Yeah.
and like give it almost no energy or close to no energy by just locking it in and letting it swing with my body.
Mm-hmm.
Strong hips, and what that looks like is you're not going side to side with your strides. You're keeping your hips in a line,
Yep.
keeping your knees like a softball width apart at least, like that reflects on your hips. If your knees are too close together, it's because your hips are collapsing. Keep your feet moving in a straight line so you're not wasting energy going to inside or to an out. Try to keep your feet moving like this. It's all about conservation of energy. And also a degree of picking up your knee and your heel at the same time. Like you're not just doing high knees. It's not a high knee, and you're not just slapping your butt with your feet. Like you're not keeping your feet pointed down and just bringing your feet up, and you're not just bringing your knees up. It's like a combination. It's like a 50-50 of both of those. Like it's your knee and your foot rising at the same time.
Do you bring your foot that high to where you could kick your butt?
No. No. No.
Okay.
Never.
Because I feel like I barely lift my feet up. Like
I feel like my legs are almost straight. I feel like I don't bend my knee at all. Like I'm almost swinging like a straight, like a locked in, slightly bent straight leg is how I feel like my default run is.
okay.
And it's more efficient to bend your knee and to raise your foot at the same time, because then your hips don't have to travel as far. So like the femur isn't swinging at such a wide angle whenever you bend your knees and your hips, because it doesn't have to.
Okay.
Because now when you bend your knees and feet, when you bend your knees and pick up your feet, your hips don't have to swing your femur at such an angle, because your feet's covering the ground and you're spending less energy.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is the higher your cadence, actually the less time your feet is making contact with the ground. And so it's actually more efficient the higher the cadence and less energy you're spending, because your feet's coming in contact with the ground for a less amount of time.
But more often. So you've got more foot strikes because if you're
Yeah.
trying to.
So these long lumbered strikes,
Mm-hmm.
or these long lumbered gaits, your foot is spending a lot of time on the ground, and you're using a lot of energy every time your foot is on the ground.
Right.
So the less time your foot is in contact with the ground, but theoretically the less load you're putting on your hips. That's less dig that your hips are making when versus that. So like this is better than that.
Yeah.
It's less load on your hips. It's less energy that your body is burning. Well, I've obviously gotten into the weeds, and I need to jump off here, but I've gotten into the weeds so far to where I just forgotten how to run. Like trying so hard to run the right
Yeah.
way, my hips are screaming in pain. I'm getting shin splints. I haven't had shin splints in years. All of a sudden, I got shin splints again, and I'm having like these small panic attacks, or not panic attacks, but like hyperventilation things when I'm getting done running. I talked to Ashley last night. She was like, "Why are you trying to run as fast as professional runners? Like, are you becoming a professional runner? Like, is this something we need to know at 40? Have you made the decision to become a competitive athlete?" I'm like, "Well, no." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Well, then why are you doing this?"
Are you sure you don't need new shoes?
I have brand new shoes.
I mean, that could also be it. Either brand new shoes or
Well,
needing.
they're worn in. I've actually ran 2 races on with them.
Yeah.
They're broken.
Yeah. Um, I think of everything that you said, one of the things that made the biggest impact on my running was kind of opening my jaw, like just letting it, like I'm not forcing it open. I'm not like I used to try to like focus on breathing through my nose, and I would just keep my mouth shut because I thought that was how you're supposed to do it. But what I found is when I just let my jaw hang, I just I keep my breath a lot better.
Yeah, and I almost do that with my lungs too. Like sometimes I'll focus on 4 beats, like four steps for an out and 4 steps for an in. But I almost spend more energy on that versus if I just let my lungs expand and collapse with the movement of my breath, or with the movement of my run. If I just let my lungs kind of, you know what I mean? Not hyperventilating, but just
Yeah.
letting my lungs be there. I'm fine. I can run like that forever.
Yep.
Like not breathing at all, not intentionally breathing at all. Just
Yep. And so I'm not an accomplished runner by any means. I ran a marathon, and I was,
yeah.
that was a goal of mine. I want to run 50 miles now, but that's made such a big difference in just that, like just allowing my breath, my mouth just to be kind of natural.
Yeah.
Made a huge impact on distance, because you can run as long as you've got your breath. You can run as long as your
Forever.
muscles, until your muscles are fatigued, like until they're, and you have to obviously get past your mind, where your mind says this hurts, you're tired. Once you get past that, unless you've got injury, you can just find a pace that you can breathe on, and you can run like that all day.
Faster than a jog. Move your feet faster than a jog, and you can do that all day, I think.
Yep.
All right. I got to get ready for work. This will probably be a twofer, I imagine.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
What do you think about recording every or twice a week, or more than once?
Yeah, I'm totally down. I just have to, 6 o'clock my time is probably like I need to be on a regular work day. I need to be leaving by 8.
Okay. I'm about done, bud. Okay.
So, all right, let's do it.
Sounds good.
Later.
Send me this whenever you can. All right.
All right, bye.